Hey everyone, welcome to the shop. My name's Joe. I'm the owner of Merriman Custom Woodcraft here in Baltimore, Maryland. And today I'm going to be showing you how to make this jig, which will allow you to join dowels together at perfect 90-degree angles or any other angle you'd like. And at the end of the video, I'll even show you a small woodworking project that incorporates this exact method. Stay tuned. So the only material we're going to need for this build is one piece of dimensional lumber, 20 inches long, 2.5 inches wide, and 3/4 of an inch thick. In this case, I'm using poplar. You can get this at any home center. You're also going to need two smaller strips of wood, also 20 inches long. I think these are about 1/4 inch thick, and they're going to be 1.25 inches wide. Now, our final dimension is going to be a little bit narrower than that, but 1.25 inches is a good place to start, and this will make more sense as we go along. And lastly, you're going to need one block of hardwood. In my case, I'm using ash. It's about 2 inches by 2 inches, and you really don't want to go any thinner than 1 inch. You could use softwood for this, but we're going to be putting some screws into this block, and even pre-drilling, I've had pine split on me pretty frequently. So I would recommend using ash or maple, oak, just something that's got a little bit more density. So these are the only materials that we need, and let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is cut this groove into the base. It needs to be 1/4 inch thick and 5/8 of an inch wide. There's several ways we could do this. I'm going to do it on a table saw. You could use a router. You could use a router plane. You could even use a saw and a chisel. But basically what I'm going to do on the table saw is take one pass down the middle and slowly back the fence up until we have the groove to 5/8 of an inch wide. And to measure that, I'm just going to be using these inexpensive digital calipers. These are made by General. I'll put a link to these in the description. And I'll just be slowly creeping the fence out on the table saw until we get to our 5/8 of an inch groove. So let's head over to the table saw and take care of that. So now that we're over at the table saw, I have my blade set to 1/4 inch and my fence set to 1.25 inches. That's because our base piece is 2.5 inches wide, and we need our dado to be centered in the board. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send the piece down the table saw, turn it around, send it down again, and slowly back our fence out until I have a 5/8 of an inch dado. Now, this would certainly be faster with a dado stack, but I don't have one, and this works just fine. So here we go. I just want to interject here and say you should never use your table saw like this. That's being careless, and you should always use a push stick, especially when making a cut like this. So that's all. Back to the video. Now that our groove is cut, we need to make the clamp that will be holding the dowel to the baseboard. All we're going to be doing for this is taking our block of wood, and we're going to be finding the center. I've already done that by drawing a line from one corner and making an X in the middle. We're going to be drilling a 1 1/1 inch hole directly in the center of this block and cutting it in half to make this clamp. The reason it's 1 1/1 inch is because that is the thickness of the dowel that I'm going to be using. If you're using a different diameter dowel, then by all means drill a different size hole for your clamp. But that's the size that I'm using, so that's the size that we need to drill in this block. So let's head over to the drill press and take care of that. So once we get our clamping piece made, we want to put 2 pilot holes on either side to prevent it from splitting. We're going to be screwing this down to the base, and that's going to serve as a clamp to hold our dowel in place while we're at the drill press. At this point, we're going to go back to the drill press and drill our first hole into our 1 1/4 inch dowel to accept our 5/8 inch dowel. So let's go over to the drill press and do that. Now, when we're drilling the hole into our 1 1/4 inch dowel, it's important that the hole be directly in the center of the dowel. To do this, we clamp a fence to the base of our drill press, and to find the location of that fence, what we do is we center the drill bit in the groove that we made on the table saw. Once we see that the bit is centered in the saw or centered in the dado, we can go ahead and clamp the fence in place there, and then we know when we drill the hole into the actual dowel, we'll know it'll be right in the center of the dowel. So let's go ahead. Now that we've got our first joint made, we have to come up with a way to accurately and reliably be able to turn our workpiece 90 degrees in order to join our third dowel to the workpiece. So the way we do that is by attaching these two strips on either side of the base, so that when the dowel comes in contact with the strip, we know that the piece has been turned exactly 90 degrees. The way we get that height is by taking our two strips that we milled up previously, putting them out to the side of our base, and as this dowel comes down, it needs to contact both of these strips at exactly the same time. Now, as you can see, because we initially intentionally milled our strips to be wider than we needed, when I rotate this dowel down, it comes in contact with this first one, but it's about 1/4 of an inch off of the surface of the second one. So what we need to do is shave an equal amount of material off of either of these strips, so when this dowel rotates down, it contacts them at exactly the same time. Now, there's several ways you can do this. You could use a table saw, you could use a hand plane. I'm probably gonna end up using a hand plane because there's not that much material that needs to come off, and frankly, it's just more enjoyable. Now that our strips have been milled to the exact height that we need to get our 90-degree angle, all that's left is to attach them to the side of our base. All that requires is a little bead of glue, and in my case, I'm going to throw on a couple brad nails. They are not completely necessary by any means. They just kind of act as clamps, and this way I can keep working without having to wait for the glue to dry. So now that we have our strips installed, the only thing that's left to do is clamp our workpiece back onto the base and rotate it so that the indexing dowel that sticks out of our initial hole comes in contact with our strip. Go over to the drill press and drill another hole exactly 90 degrees to our original one. And that's all there is to it. With our second hole drilled, all you need to do is insert a second dowel into the hole, and we've got a workpiece whose components are all 90 degrees to each other. You can also achieve any other angle you desire simply by taking a pair of wedges such as these, inserting them underneath of the jig in the drill press, and repeating the same process. This technique is useful for making projects such as this chair, where this front rail and side rail are not 90 degrees to each other. Now, I can't take credit for this jig. It can be found along with a detailed step-by-step guide to this chair in Jeff Miller's Chair Making and Design book. It's a book I highly recommend, and I will leave a link for it in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.